Have you ever wondered what the behind the scenes of the beauty industry really looks like? Perhaps you pondered on making this your source of income, or you're just curious of what it takes to create a wildly popular and profitable product. The beauty industry, despite its forever changing landscape, is one of the largest and most competitive of them all. It is a wildly successful field to get into, with an estimate of over $100 billion in revenue worldwide and reported 17.9 billion in recorded sales online, as stated by cosmetic retailers. No wonder there's a large amount of people trying to jump on to get a slice of the pie. So, what does it really take to get into the industry, but also stand out in a sea of experts? How to jump through multiple hoops like huge competitors, product formulation, and manufacture, FDA approvals, and all the other challenges that show up on the way. If you're interested in answers to all or any of those questions, stick around as we will be answering those and more with my guest expert, Ginger King, a cosmetic product development consultant and owner of the vegan clean beauty brand Fan Love Beauty, who went from a wannabe makeup artist, as she says herself, all the way to being branded the queen of cosmetic chemistry by Elle magazine, to becoming a cosmetic judge for Allure, having her own monthly segment on Good Day Sacramento, and being quoted over 150 times a year by various beauty magazines and publications. This is Habits of Influence, a podcast by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly sides of entrepreneurship and building a movement.
Everything that happens is motivation.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to yet another week of our show. As I've mentioned in my intro, today's guest is nothing short of extraordinary. And if you've ever pondered getting into the beauty industry, I'm sure you'll get tons of value from listening to today's episode. So without further ado, Ginger, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for coming over.
Thank you for your invitation. My pleasure.
Oh, it's such an honor. We're really excited. When we read your application online, we have been really impressed with the amounts of things that you've done with your brand, as well as a consultant, and the way you are being revered by the industry at this time. But you did say yourself, it started very humble, right? You've had a dream. You started out as a makeup artist, essentially, and you wanted to make it big. So what I wanted to start with is, what made you go on that journey? Why beauty? Why cosmetics? This is such a wildly competitive field. What made you want to do it in the first place?
Actually grew up in beauty. However, I never realized the influence until later on, because my mom was the first woman brought, she said, the boutique from Japan to Taiwan. So growing up, I watching her doing makeovers and stuff like that. And I came to America when I was 16. At the time, I haven't started like wearing makeup, but then I just started experimenting it. And there was one time, it's in a hot summer day, I went into a restaurant without makeup. And despite that, I was waving at the waiters and nobody seemed to like notice me. And the very next day, I went into the same restaurant because there wasn't a lot of choices around me. But this time, I was treated like a VIP. And the difference was I had makeup on. And that was the instance that dawned on me, wow, how makeup can transfer how people perceive you. And it's just like the whole feeling is just so different. At the time, I was like, I want to be a makeup artist because I personally experienced this transformation. However, being Asian, I was like, you cannot go be a makeup artist as you wish, because you need to go to college. You need to have, if not a PhD, at least a master's degree. So I was like, okay, how about being a cosmetic chemist? I will make beauty products. In that way, I can satisfy my family, my culture, and I get to be the one that creating products rather than the one that apply products. So that's even better for me. And I never regret it.
Oh wow. And it is not an easy feat, isn't it? I don't think that people realize, because you help brands from startup, from the conception of an idea and the formulation of the actual product, all the way through to the launch of that product. And I would like you to talk a little bit to that to our listeners so they know how much is involved. And I do have a beauty accessories brand, which is like, this is like a completely small, tiny little field in what you are doing with the actual product formulation. So I just want people to know how much work is involved from the concept itself all the way through creation to the launch of the product. If you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. You know, having a beauty brand or a product is the same like having a baby. The exact timing is 9 months. Okay, so let's talk about the first trimester. What are you doing for the first trimester is you really examine why are you doing this. You need to find out your emotional why, because without your emotional why, it's very hard for you to sustain. Every single successful brand may take anywhere from 10 to 15 years. You may not see it, but the founder's been working very hard, for all these years. But if you don't have the emotional why, if you don't hit your sales goal the first year, second year, you can be frustrated. So you need to start with the emotional why, and then you need to do your competitive landscape to see where are the white spaces. Then you need to check with the chemist to see if the white spaces can be filled or not. I get this a lot. It's like, sunscreen is a category that really needs innovation. But the reason why you don't see a lot of innovation in sunscreen is because it's highly regulated. It's considered as a drug. So there isn't much leeway you can do. So yes, everybody can dream, but there's also a reality check. So this is what you are doing for the first 3 months, is really to find which category do you want to hone in, and also validate whether it's your concept feasible or not. Not so much from technology aspect, but you also need to meet the regulatory requirements. So that's the first step. The second trimester is you doing prototyping. Prototyping is you have this idea, but you need to do experiment, a lot of trial and errors. So usually what the cosmetic chemist will ask you for benchmark. When we ask for benchmark, it doesn't mean we're going to copy the formula. And first of all, I hate duping any formulas because it's just, not the right thing to do. Well, when we ask for benchmark, what we are doing is we want to know what kind of texture do you like? Because your luxurious can be too greasy for me. So we need to speak on the same wavelength, we need to be on the same page. So we'll be asking for benchmark. It's not to duplicate the exact formula, but just to get what your idea of a luxurious feel is like. Then that's gonna take about 3 months to refine everything. And the final trimester is you'll be doing a lot of stability testing, because making a cosmetic product is not like cooking. When you cook, as long as whoever eating your dish does not get a diarrhea, does not get food poison, you are fine, you won't be sued, right? But for cosmetics, we need to ensure the product does not separate on the shelf for at least 2 years. And if it's a OTC sunscreen or active product, expiration date, we have to stand there for like a year. So there are regulations, there are testing, and we also need to do micro challenge test. What is micro challenge test is, even though as a chemist put in preservative system in the formula, it does not guarantee you it will not grow back, especially if the consumer, let's say he or she did not wash their hands after their bathroom and they dip their finger into the cream. The preservation system in the cream needs to be able to kill off whatever bugs there is. And this is the reason why preservative challenge test is very, very important. So it will not grow mold or any bacteria. So there are testings to be done. And we also put our products into like a 40-degree C oven, 50-degree C oven, just to make sure there's no separation for 3 months. And we also put into the freezer, because during shipping the transit, it's like it may be very hot in Arizona, but then, it may be shipped to Alaska or anywhere it's cold. So you need to make sure that during the transit, there is no separation, only changes in the product texture. It's all called for testing. So, the first stage is really refining your concept. The second stage is doing experiment to come up with something that you like. Then the third stage is doing all the experiments. Now, are there more? Yes, there are more to do. For example, if you want to do a skincare, you want to have claim for something, you cannot just say it. You need to have data. So in order to have data, you need to do clinical claims, you need to send it out for a third party. So there are a lot of things involved. Now, people say, I don't have 9 months to spend. Can I do it in 6 months? Yes, you can have a preemie, but you're also taking a risk because what is a very, very minimum is you need to do the 3 months of stability testing. So that's why it's pretty much like having a baby.
That's fantastic. And it kind of brings me back in my journey when I first started out and when I was opening my beauty business. I remember the thing that actually stopped me because the plan was completely different. I actually wanted to get into skincare products or makeup products. And then I realized all of those steps that you need to take for the laboratory testing, for the FDA approval. And that was the time when I looked at how much time and money it requires. Really, I felt like, okay, I'm not going into this. I'm going to stick to accessories. It's really much easier. But it actually really shocked me because I wasn't aware that whatever product you put on your face or touches your face or touches your skin in general needs to be approved. So like you said, there's extensive tests, and for a fact, we've seen so many failed brands because people did not put enough care and enough time into those stages that you have just described. So really, people are doing themselves a disservice, aren't they, if they don't do it?
Well, there are actually 3 ways of having a baby. Okay.
Go on.
The first way is to adopt. Adopt is meaning you use private label. Somebody already have the product available and you just put your label on. In this case, you don't have any say on what ingredients you want to use. You pretty much just a marketing arm of whatever's already done there. You put your label over and you're a sales agent. If you do private label, your investment is very small. A couple $1,000, you can have your own beauty brand tomorrow. The caveat is, if you depend on the private label, if tomorrow they decide to close down the division, that still goes on your business. And also because you don't have a say on the ingredients in your product, you pretty much like selling water. Everybody have the same thing. So it's how good is your marketing. So that's private label. The second way, I call it co-parenting. Co-parenting is you can work with a contract manufacturer. They can do some customization for you. But once you work with a contract manufacturer, you will need to abide to their minimum order quantity. Usually it's 10,000 pieces. And you don't own the formula either. So they can still use that formula and do a little tweak and give to somebody else. It's a little bit better than doing private label, but still it's not the best way. The best way is working with a consultant. I am a consultant myself, which you can actually customize your product according to your specification. I actually help you with your unique selling proposition because you mentioned earlier it's very competitive. How do you stand out? How you stand out is the technology that you use. A regular consumer may not have the access to all the ingredients that cosmetic chemists have. Usually people just know, hyaluronic acid, peptide, ceramide, and retinol is very common. But cosmetic chemists, we have access to ingredients actually tested better than all those common ingredients. So I will put together those special ingredients for you, and I give you an advantage over other brands. And you also get to own your formula. The beauty of owning your formula is twofold. One is you will not be held hostage by the contract manufacturer because it's your formula. When they want to jack up the price on you, you just go to another factory. You don't have
Mm.
anything. During the pandemic, I have seen contract manufacturer jack up 3 times of the pricing. But if you don't want to be, hostage, you can have another contract manufacturer you can go to. Second is once you have your own formula, it's your intellectual property, you are more investable. Because when you want to get investors, if they know it's private label, you don't worth anything. If you are a contract manufacturer, again, there are like risk factors because contract manufacturer can be bought out by another company. They can close down and so goes your brand. And
Yeah.
when you have your own formula, it's really yours. So you are investable. So that's the beauty with working with a consultant.
And that's fantastic. And just the element of personalization, you actually making it your own, makes it like that is the unique selling point, isn't it? Because you can't find anything like it. It's not like you said about like white labeling or private labeling, where you have, let's say, a can of beans in a supermarket and then they just slap a different, etiquette on it. And but these are essentially the same beans. No, this is your product from start to finish, and you get to decide on every single part and element that's put into it. So that's great. But speaking into that, that must be super exciting with all the creativity and the innovation that you get to have your hands in, essentially. What is your favorite part of working with clients and that process of creation?
So I have everything. I have 3 stages. Okay. So the first part I call the for the concept development part, I call it brand development. So how I help the client is I help them to craft out their mission, because every brand should have a mission. Otherwise, you are just another brand out there. It should have a purpose. So I help to craft the mission statement, the vision, what you envision your brand to do, your proprietary complex of technologies that is uniquely yours, and what kind of product you should be making. And usually I tell people, you don't want to come out with a whole line of products yet. You start with one hero product to make yourself known first and to build a trust, to build a community. Then you roll out the other products slowly. So I'll help you with the product lineup, the pricing, the packaging, the distribution channel, because you actually need to know where you're going to be selling your products before you even start it. A lot of people say, I just want to sell in my on my website. However, if you have a remote idea, you want to go to Sephora, you want to go to Ulta, your pricing needs to be right up front, because retailers take 60% of your product margin. If you don't set your margin right, you're actually losing money every time you sell to the retailer. So we are in the business for profit, and that only the profit can really push you forward. Otherwise, you can do philanthropy. Actually, talking about philanthropy is a very important component also, because if people can buy a beauty product from you versus another brand, when you buy their product, you also contribute to the social cause, making this brand more valuable, because you're also doing a social, the society good. So philanthropy has also become very important.
And this is actually the next thing that I wanted to speak to you about, because your own brand, Fan Love Beauty, is a vegan, clean beauty brand. So it does have that social aspect built within it. And I know for a fact you are right. Brands that do have a cause behind them and stand for a little bit more than just the product itself are those that are the most successful. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that it has an impact in building a movement around the product rather than just putting out a product to the marketplace?
Well, because we live on the same earth. So if we can contribute back to the society, it's beyond just product. It's really an emotional connection to your consumer as well. And the reason why I chose Suicide Prevention Foundation was because I built a brand for entrepreneurs. And entrepreneurs, the life is like a roller coaster, and it can be very easily go down the road of suicide. So I want the brand to be a happy brand, to encourage people to live longer, because once they can live longer, they can inspire, educate, and entertain the society. And that's part of my mission too.
That's fantastic. And of course, you are now revered as the expert. You have your own segment on a TV show, on a morning show. You have been quoted multiple times by industry experts or magazines that talk about beauty, talk about beauty products. You have also been endorsed by very well-known people, amongst which you can see people like Damon John saying that one of your products is the best lip balm for speakers. This is absolutely fantastic. Endorsements of those kind are not easy to get from the start, from the get-go. And we know for a fact that a lot of brands, especially in the beauty industry, are started every single year, where only 30% of them survive. What would your best tip be, based on your own experience and your own maybe challenges and what you've been through? What are the most important things that you need to look at once you launch the product and once you're building their brand, you're trying to get known and you're trying to build that influence? What would be that one thing that makes you stand out of the crowd, essentially, and makes your brand sustainable, but also, live through those rough periods and then blow up as a, like yourself, right? As an expert or better than others?
It's really not just one thing, it's a multiple things. And seriously, come to think about it, what I do as a consultant is very easy because all my job is to deliver a baby to you. It's up to you on how you want to grow, how are you gonna nurture the baby. So it will depending on your relationship with the retailers, your relationship with the PR, with the beauty editors, your relationship with your own community. So it's not just like one thing. It's like, how are you gonna grow your baby, to help upbring your baby.
I love the how you compare the product to a baby. And I actually remember when I first started out, it was like a little set of beauty brushes, which I was involved in the creation process with the manufacturer, how they're supposed to be cut, what sort of handles they're supposed to have, what sort of materials they're supposed to have. And it was so exciting, but you're right. It kind of felt, now I have my son, so I can compare. It actually did feel like a child, like a baby. It was so important, every single part of the process. But and yeah, I know, of course, that there's a lot of things that kind of consist of building a brand, and most of the time when it comes to beauty, it's all about how, like you said, what your vision is, how you want to promote it, what is the message behind it, being in congruence with people that you work with, which this is going to be one of the topics, because it's very common to work with influencers, right, when you are creating a product, a beauty product especially. And getting those relationships, I think what you said is essential. Building strong, sustainable relationships, like with any business, regardless of whether it's a service or a product, is the most important thing for every business owner. Would you agree?
Yes, every business is people centered.
Right. And speaking of influencers, because we stuck on a podcast, we talk about the good things, but we also talk about the dirty and the ugly. And I'm sure, like every industry, of course, the beauty industry has its misconceptions, and a lot of people have horror stories of working with influencers, demanding things, of how difficult sometimes it is to find the right ones. Do you have any stories or anything that you would want to share, to look out for when you're searching for influencers to work with, or when you're building those relationships? What might you encounter? If you have any dirty stories, we want the tea.
I actually, honestly, for my own brand, I have not used influencers. I mean, Damon John is a different story because I actually built a lip balm for him. Russell, it's a built-in influencer. But the reason why I don't use influencer for my own brand is because honestly, I don't believe in influencers, because how can somebody showing you a face cream today and then showing you a face cream tomorrow? How do you know what, if even if they look amazing, how do you know which product is doing that? And then they all got paid.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous, isn't it? It's like, also creams presented by very young ladies who have not a wrinkle on their face.
Yeah. And this is the reason why I don't really look into influencer marketing as much, at least for my brand, just because I don't think the credibility is there. Everybody can claim they're a beauty expert just because they use product, but they use so much product, you don't have consistency. For any product, unless it's like a styling product, unless it's like a color makeup, for skincare, you have to use at least 2 to 4 weeks just to see how it works. And especially when you layer this and they're like, you don't even know what you are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also about the fact that, like I said, what misleading information, like for the presentation of who you actually give it to. So what would you say is the best way to work with people or to promote yourself at that stage where you said you don't work with influencers? So is media your main kind of way of presenting your products? Is that something that you've decided that you're going to go for? And obviously you've seen your clients, you've helped your clients. Is that something that you propose to others as the best way to go about things?
Yes, media will be the best because media actually help to get your products out there. There are multiple people gonna see it. The influencers, only their followers follow them. Via media, you actually have a broader outreach. And also with media, when they call you, they give you a backlink. And that's how you can trace, where things go. And with the influencers, you pay them, and then unless you give them a code, it's harder to trace, what is this influencer doing for you.
Yeah, and I've heard some horror stories from product businesses that, essentially, like you said, paid influencers large amounts of money and they had no return whatsoever from it. And the people were not really trusting to the people that were chosen, to the influencers that were chosen, because let's just get things straight. Influencers can have massive followings, but that doesn't mean that those are actual paying customers, right?
Correct.
Definitely. Okay, so looking at your customer's journey, because obviously you have been in the game for a very long time, you have massive experience. You have probably seen people start as well and being stubborn or trying to do things not, I think you've even mentioned that in your application, that you give advice to people, but the advices are always followed. What are the worst consequences and the things that people should look out for when building a beauty brand?
Okay, they should always get advice from people who have done it, not for your friends and family. Anybody can give you I see this a lot. A lot of times, you come with a very passionate founder, and then they talk to their quote unquote family investors, and they're gonna say, "Oh, that costs too much money. Oh, that it kind of just killed the dream." You should only ask for people that have done it before, so they can help you to get where you want to go, rather than your brothers, sisters, your family who has never been in the beauty business, who doesn't know what it takes. I remember I was doing the pricing for one of the client, and one of the pricing, I put the face oil for like $98, and the guy, the founders, investors said, $98? I will never pay $98 for a face oil. But that's from his perspective.
I wanted to say yes. Yeah, I think it's often, I think it's not just beauty industry. I think it's a common thing for every single industry to seek advice from people that have not done it before. And we always need to remember not to look from our own personal perspective when we are pricing our products. You're very, very right in here, because you're not the consumer of it. You're supposed to sell it. That's your job. You don't know how much money people have. What I always try to say to my clients as well is, no, don't assume how much money people have or how much they're willing to spend. It's the perceived value that they see in a product or a service that is going to determine if they want to buy it or not. Fantastic. Oh my gosh. So Ginger, very, very interesting information that you have provided for us. If people do want to know more, they want to work with you, or they want to find out more about your services, or they are kind of on the fence of wanting to get a product but they're not entirely sure, where they can find you?
On my Instagram. The Beauty Shark Ginger.
The Beauty Shark, awesome. And if somebody wishes to get some help, Ginger has been kind enough for our listeners of the podcast to provide a little gift PDF with the 10 most important things to look out for when you're building a beauty brand. But by all means, it's going to work for any brand, but specifically, this is her expertise. So if you're into beauty, or you want to create a product, or you're thinking of creating a product, this is the resource I would really, really, really recommend. So fantastic. Do you have a website, Ginger, that people can look
Yes,
into?
gracekingdombeauty.com.
Fantastic.
Grace Kingdom Beauty. Mhm.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
All right. And guys, as usual, all the links will be provided for you in the description of the episode on YouTube, as well as in the description of your episode on one of your favorite platforms, whatever you have your podcasts. So do check it out. You can contact Ginger directly through Instagram, or just go into her website. She's also got a wonderful website for her beauty products, if anybody's interested, ladies, wink, wink. And that's Fan Love Beauty, and that's FANLOVEBEUTY.com. I've checked it out, and the products look really absolutely amazing. So she doesn't just say things from the perspective of just consultation. She actually is she's practicing what she's preaching. This is a really knowledgeable person. So check those out as well, because I'm pretty sure that they're fantastic. So thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode, guys. I'm going to see you in the next 2 weeks. Next week, remember that Ian is going to be hosting our new amazing guest. And Ginger, that was such a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming today. You've provided us with a boatload of very valuable information. So I'm really grateful.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you. All right, guys, take care. And I'm going to see you in the next one.